I personally believe, and I'm deep into drones. I understand it. I understand what AI does today. I don't believe AI is as accurate as it needs to be.
Who is doing this? Is it aliens or humans build it, right?
You simply press the button, that drone lands, and you're going to have a complete estimate over here of your product specific to you and what you're selling.
How much does it cost? Where to buy it? Who can do it? It'll be all automated. Today we're talking about how storm restoration and roofing industry is changing in 2023. But first, let me introduce you to the sponsor of this video, Enhancify Financing. If you're the contractor, you need to have solid financing option for your customers. Why? Because 56% of Americans cannot write $1,000 check. Many contractors are complaining about homeowners are asking them to waive their deductible on insurance claims, but the reality is, if your deductible is a couple $1,000, I think average is about $2,500, they simply don't have money. That's where Enhancify comes into play. It's very easy to set up. You don't have to be years in business. You can sign up today, even if you've been in business for a couple of weeks, and offer it to your clients. Learn how to sell financing, because financing is one of the biggest trends in construction and especially storm restoration industry. Now let's talk about all the changes that's happening to storm restoration contractors and roofing contractors in 2023 with Chandler Steffy. Welcome back to Business Hats Podcast. I have very special guest today, very diversified background, drove all the way from Iowa today. Chandler, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dmitry.
Chandler, how many business hats do you wear today?
Compared to when I started,
Yes.
a lot less. I have a very good team behind me that supports us, but 3 to 5, I would guess.
3 to 5. Love it. Let's talk about your background. I want to start as early as possible. How many businesses you've been at? How many jobs did you have? Take me all the way back to your, as early as you would like to. You're from Iowa. How did it affect what you do today? Why do you still live there? I know it's a hidden gem in the storm restoration industry, but talk to me about your background and transition to what you do today.
You know, Iowa's a special place. A lot of people assume it's farms, cornfields, and literally that's where I was raised. I was raised on a farm in north central Iowa from a childhood on up in the 80s, 70s, 80s. And back then we had the farm crisis going on. So there's just a lot of battles that as a child you sit there and you watch your family go through and you actually had to live. So we lived through that all the way through,
How can you describe that crisis? Like, what was happening in the farming industry in those years?
Oh, farmers were going bankrupt. Banks, I believe actually the bank that my parents used, they were one of the first bank in the state of Iowa to go under at the time. But there was just the loan crisis. Farmers were getting themselves in debt with the loans. They got into loans that weren't good. They weren't able to make the payments.
To buy equipment, land?
Buy equipment to put the crops in, to be able to harvest crops. They need to have that cash flow to make it happen. And a lot of these farmers got themselves upside down in those situations. And the price of grain, at market wasn't enough to pay off those debts that these farmers have got themselves into.
Wow.
If that makes sense. And, there's other problems that went along with it in that, you have farms that transfer from one family to the next, and then debt transfers from the one family to the next family member. So there's stuff like that was going on throughout the 70s and 80s. And then I went off to college out in Ohio because I was trying to run away from the state. I thought if I could get far away, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to know where the big money was at. So went off to college, full circle back in a couple years, and I find myself in the Des Moines area, about 2 hours from our farm, and married into a family of new construction. And I realized that being on a farm and being raised on the farm, there was just some core values, hustling, hard work, a long day's work,
Do you contribute your work ethics to Days of the Farm?
Oh, 100%. As a child, 5 years old. I was out, since I was the shortest, when we were out shoveling the crap out in the hog lot, I would fit the farthest back into where the shed went down, where the pigs were, and I'd be the first one to shed that manure back out. And that was my job. And that was early. I mean, I only remember working. I don't remember, in the spring when kids get out of school, you talk about summer break. Well, for me, school was 18 miles away. I lived on a farm. I never went back to town again. Everything on our kitchen table was from the farm. The food, the meat was from the hogs we raised. My dad's best friend had cattle, so that was the cattle meat. The guy down the road had a dairy, so we had milk. So everything was from. So we never had to go to town. So when everybody else was at home playing with each other, I was on a farm helping make a living for our family.
Wow.
But that goes back to where we're at today,
Love it. I want to know how many of our listeners can relate to that. We've been on a farm, maybe have relatives, grandparents. Comment below. I want to know. I want to share really quickly my story. Like, I grew up in Siberia, the coldest place on earth in Russia, but my grandparents, both from my mom and dad side, are from Moldova, small agriculture's country between Russia and Ukraine, very tiny. But every summer we would travel there and spend summer and grandma, and I actually spent 1 year when I was in 10th grade. And when my grandma passed away about 10 years ago, I was in the United States. I flew there for funeral. My dad said that my grandma influenced me more than my dad did. And it's true, because I learned the hard work at my grandma's, because we, chickens, cows, there's something special about the crop. Yeah, being on the roof is a hard work. Don't get me wrong. Working in the factory is a hard work, but working in an open field at 5 o'clock in the morning, doing, like whatever you do on the farm is as closer to God as you'll get, as closer to hard work as you'll get. It will build your work ethic for life. And I loved it. And we were so poor. Like, I would go 5 in the morning to the forest to cut branches so we have firewood that day. It was brutal. It was hard, but it built you for life.
I think it. As you're talking, I think it drives your entrepreneurship.
True.
Because every day, like you just said, you were going off into the woods. While you're going off the woods to get that wood, you're sitting there tearing the wood down to bring it back, and you're thinking about the things you could do to make money.
I agree.
And that's exactly what was instilled in me. Just that drive to never be satisfied, always do your best, and you will succeed. And that's what it is. I mean, you go out, look at these farmers. They go out and they invest. They drop X amount of dollars into the field in the spring or into an animal to expect a reward, 3, 4, 5 months down the road, and they have faith that it's going to happen. And I think through that faith is what drives us.
Love it. And it's so sad to what's happening. I'm actually doing a few pieces of content right now, what's happening to roofers and the roofing industry in 2023, because it is very similar to what happened to farmers, to what happened to trucking industry in the last few years, because truckers make less money than ever. Farmers make less money than ever. Essentially, they're working for the bank versus for themselves. It's very hard to be self-funded, like you rely on loans. You have faith in what you do that is going to bring you, profit later. But as we know, not many things goes as planned. You cannot control environment. You cannot control market. You don't know who's going to be booking you, buying services from you. It's very sad. But in the roofing industry, between price increases, between insurance denials, between the rest of the crap that's happening, inflation is a huge thing. Roofers, in my opinion, are getting robbed these days. And I see roofers charging the same rates they've been charging 10 years ago. Like, you go to Chicagoland, you will find a roofer today who still charges $325, $350. Mm-hmm. And they charged it 10 years ago. Except truck today costs double, if not triple, to what trucks you could buy 10 years ago F-150 for $30,000, $35,000. today is what starting price? $70K?
Yeah, 70, 80.
You could buy iPhone for like $400. What is it today? $1,000?
Yep, 1,000,
And
1,200.
I consult those guys and I ask them, how much do you charge? He's like, they would tell me $325. What did you charge 10 years ago? $325. And I start naming expenses, what I see around. How much do you pay for that truck? How much you pay for that phone? How much did you pay 5 years ago? And it starts clicking. But I don't think they can overnight change, because it's not only them, it is the manufacturers of shingles. It is everything. Because if you look also at the stock in our industry, who is I think she is the richest woman in the United States, CEO of ABC Supply. Ask yourself that, like, how can one family, one corporation make so much money? As a matter of fact, I talked to privately. I couldn't publish that interview. I have a Zoom call with one of the founders or CEOs of one of the manufacturers. Not going to name the name, but he told me, big manufacturer, one of 8 manufacturers that we have. He said, Dmitry, all money these days are in the middle. It's all suppliers. We don't make money. And he runs manufacturing. And manufacturers keep raising their prices. And they do make money. But it's Owens Corning, it's Beacons, it's SRS, it's ABC Supply. It's people who are essentially a bank. They are the ones who make the most. And people on the bottom, the hard-working class, like farmers, unfortunately, is the one who are desperate for bad loans. I see more and more guys who are so behind on their receivables, especially from insurance companies, that they're getting loans, financing the receivables on a 10 to 15% cost. I mean, if you know anything about this business, 10% net profit is good. If you're getting 10% net, it's good. And if you're taking a loan to finance $300,000 receivables you have, you just sign off that you're going to give away profits for all of those receivables. Unfortunately, many guys don't understand it. Do you agree with that?
100% agree with it. The small guy, the contractors today are getting the squeeze. The squeeze is going on us as contractors out in the market. And then, as you're sitting there talking about these loans, we obviously had a holiday, so there's two weeks off that we pretty much didn't work here. And if you go back and you look at it, and I was going through my emails, about every 10th email I got that was junk was some type of, I can finance you, or we have this limited finance of $200,000 or $500,000 worth of financing. And unfortunately, there's guys that are clicking on that today.
Well, they do have big problem with their hands. They're not meeting their payroll on Friday. They're behind their bill from ABC Supply. Little guy who've done $1, $2, $3 million, which is millions. Some of you thinks you're a big shot doing a couple $1 million. Sorry to break it to you, but you have no idea how little you are in this pond that we're swimming, right? So little guys doing a couple million and cannot make meets ends at the end of the day, so they don't have enough money. They have receivables they cannot collect. They're making calls, and especially during the holidays, homeowners pushing them around. And if you don't understand the game, how to collect the payment at the end, it's a real game. You have to be persistent like never before. And when they get that email with a $200,000 offer, because it's very easy to get qualified for such a deal, because all those players are looking at what's your receivables, what's your average, monthly income is, and they look how much money is coming in. So average contractor in the country will get a couple $100,000 a month. So if you multiply it in the banking industry, and I think just like we were given bad loans prior to 2008, today they're giving bad loans to contractors because they think that contractors who is getting 4 or 5 million. I'll give you an example. He's a good guy. I'll give you an example. One of the gurus in the roofing industry, he sends emails to everybody, like marketing emails. In one of his recent emails, he's like, we have like 2 gurus. He's one of them. not me. I don't consider myself a guru. He sends, by the way, I don't send cold emails. He brought as example, he said in 2019, he was working in Texas and he did $10 million that year and he could not pay $1 million to ABC Supply. I guarantee you that guy could get a loan for like $1 million based on his receivables. But first of all, if you're making $10 million a year and you lose $1 million and you don't have money, what are you freaking doing? You should be making $1 million at 10% net on that number. He was losing money because he's guru. He's all over the place. He's not managing his business. His overhead is through the roof. We have that problem. But unfortunately, the loan shark companies, the banks, they don't look at that. They look at receivables. They look at deposits. And it's good enough for them to trust you with even more deposits, which is, I mean, if you're getting $10 million a year and you still need money, you're broke. Like, you're broken.
You have a problem going on.
Yep.
You know, going into for us, you going into, we start back in September, October, and we're really pushing our team to start getting their collections by the time we get into November. Because you get into November, you got the holidays, people are buying presents, and they're going to spend that money. If you have a homeowner and you know an average, you maybe have a $20,000 project. Typically on the backside, there's 10 or 12 owed to you. And if Christmas comes in, and if you were at my house for Christmas this year,
it's a bonus.
Right, it's a bonus to them because they conveniently forget to answer the phone. Our guys will conveniently forget to go out into the field and meet them at their house, so no one answers. Out of sight, out of mind. Next thing you know, we're going into January. And we only collected 30% of the 100% we should have collected before Christmas. And then one of these emails comes through that you can get financed, so it's easier to go finance it than it is to collect and manage your team to go out and collect the right way. And I think there's a few contractors out there that are experiencing that position right now, because if you're in the northern states, we typically, like here, I walk outside, you got a ton of snow outside. Yeah. There's not this much snow in Iowa right now. But we're not going to be starting generating revenue again until sometime in March, maybe April, before that starts to flow again. And if you did your collections right in December going into January, you wouldn't have to get into those loans. And unfortunately, people are in those loans. Number one, the other thing that we see happens is if there's a storm event, there's guys that think there's a storm and I need to go out and get all this extra work, when if you look at the numbers that you can actually do as a company, like our project managers can run 50 to 70 jobs total, and they're going to try pushing their guy to go out and manage 80, 90 jobs. The problem is once you get past that 70 jobs, the quality of the work that your project manager is running or your sales guy is running is going to go down.
I think it's 40. I think no one can manage more than 40 projects. I mean, that's my number.
That's for ours, yeah. And we have a structure, but I would agree it's probably more around 40. But you get a storm event that comes out, now all of a sudden they're pushing their limits more than what they've ever ran before, so now they're spending more money than they've ever spent before as a contractor, and then they put themselves in a bad position because they're budgeting their life now off of this new amount of revenue being generated, and when they go into the next season, there's no storm. They're going right back to where they were at before, and then they're going to have this big bill with whatever vendor they buy from, that how are they going to pay it back? Because they've spent their money.
Absolutely.
Thinking they're a big player now.
What's the biggest receivable number you remember in your company? How much were on the books they were trying to collect?
In the beginning, man, it was a big deal when we were at like 18,000 and 1.8.
1.8. So you look at the board, it's like, shit, 1.8 million is owed to me.
There's part of you, I'm excited about when I hear the number because there's 1.8 owed to me. So there's revenue coming in and we're still operating, so that's good, and there's still money sitting in the bank account. But it's still an ugly feeling when you know that it's out there. For us, we know our numbers fairly well, so our collectible on that, typically we're getting all of it, but it's still, it's an ugly,
dangerous.
It's a dangerous and ugly feeling that you have in you, 100%.
I think most people don't realize how vulnerable you are in this business. I recently interviewed very successful business owner. They did 44 million last year. He's 28 years old. The guy is so humble. Like, I could not believe how nice he is. never fired an employee. He, in his lifetime, 7-8 years, he fired like 2 employees. 2016, that was the last time. So like everybody loves him. Everybody, and when I asked him who runs the company, he was like him, and him.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized he's just pointing fingers. It's all him. He's the only owner. He's the boss, but he doesn't like to be called that. So I'm interviewing him and I ask him, how are you so humble? You're 28. By the way, I'll put interview link in comment below or description below. How are you so humble? And you know what he told me? It gave me chills. He said, because you never know what can happen. You never know like how fast you can lose it all. So the guy, and his jobs are government projects, schools, like, big shit. Here's what I have to tell you. It takes one 9/11 for that 1.8 million
You're in trouble.
to go. Like, think about it. Someone owes you 1.8 million. It's tons of people. And then 9/11 happens. What do you think going to happen next day? I remember I worked in the cabinet shop years ago. And when economy crashed in 2008-9, the owner came to me and he said, Dmitry, we've been here before. 2000, after 9/11, 2001, it was the same thing. Like week or two after the disaster, like everything shuts down. No one's making buying decisions. No one's paying their bills. The sky is falling. And when you have that mentality, it could be anything. If Biden get assassinated tomorrow or another war breaks down somewhere, that's it. People will reasonably say, I'm not going to pay it until I have certainty in my life. Paying you as a roofer is not their priority when they cannot feed their kids or when they don't know if their next check is coming. That's the reality. That's how vulnerable we are. So that's why it's scary.
Well, 100. Well, back to our story is I was a framing contractor in new construction from 97 to 2012. In 2008, the market crashed. And we went from a very good amount of, I literally thought I was going to retire by 55, 60.
As a framer.
As a framing carpenter.
So you were making how much as a framing carpenter?
I was taking home $150,000 to $200,000 a year.
That's like lawyer's money. Guys, if you're still thinking about what to do with your life, this is what you do. You go in trades.
Trades is amazing. I swear by the trades. In fact, with our company, we have schools that come in just to talk about the trades and how there's opportunities out there. I went to school to be in medicine, and that was the last. I shouldn't have ever gone to school. I should have went straight into the trades because the trades is passionate to me. But going back to what happened
150 or 200?
Yep. And we had a lot of money in the bank. And by the time we got to 2012, all of our savings was gone. I have 5 children like you. And it was November of 2012, and we had $5,000 left in our bank account. And I don't know how far $5,000 goes in your family. Maybe 3 weeks, and you're out of it.
No.
And
a week?
I literally looked at my wife, and I said, I don't know what we're going to do. And that's what introduced me to this industry. I actually found a very good friend of mine now up in the Minneapolis area, and he had an ad on Facebook. And this is when Facebook really wasn't that popular.
What year?
2012. November 2012, he ran an ad for roofing, siding, window, gutter sales in Minneapolis and Denver, Colorado. And I looked at my wife. I said, can you move to Minneapolis or can you move to Denver?
What was his name?
Good friend of mine. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, good friend of his. If you're doing ads, recruiting ads in 2012, you're ahead of the game. I don't know anyone who were doing recruiting ads in 2012.
He was killing.
That's awesome.
Extremely successful
That's
in this industry.
awesome.
Very successful. But I responded to it. I came up, did an interview, and he said, we're going to teach you everything we know, open an office up in Des Moines, Iowa. And that's literally what I did. I started an office in restoration in 2000. It was 2013, April of 2013, I opened my doors up. It was myself. I did 59 projects that year, about 590,000.
You know the saying, there's no school for roofers. There's no roofing school. Well, it's actually not true. There is a roofing school, and it has been around for years, for a couple of years to be exact. It's online school for roofers, roofing-school.com. A roofing school helps roofers become better business owners because roofing business is not about roofing trade. you might be really good at installing shingles on top of the roof. It's good for you that you're not afraid of heights, that you're willing to work long hours, but that's not going to make you successful. Unfortunately, we respect the trade, we respect the workers, the crew, the installers, but those installers often fail when they don't know their numbers, when they don't understand the process, when they don't know how to present themselves and how to compete with the salespeople in the roofing industry. That's what roofing school is all about. I highly recommend roofing school. I started it a couple years ago, but I'm not the only teacher. Inside roofing school, you will find a lot of content from companies that we travel to. We travel to over 100 companies, and we also have other teachers like Ben Minchaka, who passed away last year. Becca Switzer will teach you recruiting, and few others amazing speakers and trainers who will help you understand how to be successful in this game we call business. Because doesn't matter how good you are with your hands, with your hammer, how fast you install those shingles, if you don't understand accounting, if you don't understand sales, administration, you will for sure fail and become part of the statistics. Our goal is to help as many roofers to become successful contractors as possible. We already graduated over 300. It's online school. It's very affordable. Starts at just $49 for all content. We will help you with the forms, contracts, and at higher packages at $399 a month, we will create marketing materials for you. Unlimited graphic design will help you with flyers, vehicle wraps, yard signs, anything you need to be successful at the sale, at the door, and in your office. Sign up for roofing school today, and I will see you inside.
What was great about it is he introduced me into the exterior restoration industry, and I saw all the good in it, but then there was some bad stuff I didn't like. And the company that he was associated with at that time was more of a, you go out and, you evaluate 10 homes, all 10 of them you evaluate, there's damage on them, file a claim, and by sure numbers, you're going to get jobs.
So numbers game.
It was a numbers game, and it worked. I mean, for the first time since 2008, I had flipped it, and I wasn't losing money. I was finally breaking even at least, or I found my opportunity, and I found who I was again, because from that 2008 to 2012, it just sucked the energy out of you. When you take, like you were saying, that 1.8 owed to you, if you're never going to get it, I guarantee you your energy is going to be sucked away from you as you realize that you don't have that anymore.
Love it. So as a framing contractor, I know you've been a lot around construction. You probably have seen the rest of the trades and stuff. How does storm restoration roofing compares to the rest of the trades? Would you say that we're like new? I personally compare, and I wonder if you agree with this. Everybody has their perception of masons, right? But if you study the masons, their history, so it came from masonry back in 1500s, 1600s, because those guys were the only guys with the money. So they were building churches mid-centuries. So they were bricklayers. If you imagine temple in Italy, Spain, wherever, and you have all this money to build it, like you're craftsman, like United States as well. So masonry was the pinnacle of society. There was it's the biggest buildings anywhere. So even to this day, if you go to any downtown, you see these buildings, like who built that?
Yeah, it's amazing architecture.
Exactly. So masonry contractors at the time built it. So they were loaded with money, and that's how the whole movement was created, because you're loaded, you're making essentially the most important pieces of society, like buildings and stuff, and that's how the movement came. But today, modern masons, I would say they're roofers in construction industry in the United States, because we make the most money. Insurance companies are the biggest buyers. They spend billions of dollars. You don't see it amongst painters or drywallers. But roofers do move millions, if not, billions of dollars. Would you agree that it's a pinnacle of the roofing industry? Not the builders, not the remodelers. We do have few players there, but it's actually a roofing industry.
I would agree. Where I find the question intriguing to me is when I was a framer, I swore I would never, ever be a roofer or in that industry. I never wanted to do
Bad
remodels.
reputation.
I never wanted to. Exactly. I didn't want to have to deal with, because when I framed, I mean, I was involved in my career of framing about 750 different projects. All right. Well, we're dealing with about that many projects a year right now. The volume of individuals that we had to deal with, to me, was just overwhelming. I was like, how can you do that? I had a friend of mine that was a roofer he still is, very good roofer in the Des Moines market. And we were mentors, because I would go to each other, because I would go out and I'd frame a building up, and then he was the roofer that came behind me and put the roof on it. And we were the same age, from the same northern Iowa, and we just talked back and forth and had a lot of connection. I was like, I could never do what you're doing. And then the day I got into it, I had to call him up. I said, just so you know, I'm getting into the industry. He's retail, and I was more insurance. And I said, I'm going this insurance route. But today,
he's probably hating you.
Yeah, today, I believe exactly what you're saying. The things not on the roofing side or the restoration side, we're going in and we're solving all of the problems that the people that believe they're contractors building homes or big buildings outside of commercial side. I think they're good. On the residential side, I just think we're solving a lot of problems that were created during the build because they're not educated. Is that fair?
Yes. I mean, it is fair. And I see more and more roofers who are becoming influential players. So back in the day, 10 years ago, we have nasty storm chasers. It was truly, hookers, cocaine. That was the industry. Today, I have so many guys who are into real estate, and they have 500 other businesses. Like, I look at guys like Eric Reno, who's buying another property in Florida, next month. Like, the guy owns half of Michigan. So we have guys all over the place who invested their money, who have big teams, who making huge change in their communities. I mean, if you're running 20, 30, $40 million shops, you're responsible for like hundreds of families. You probably have real estate. You probably have investments. You probably have 3-4 other deals. Like, on the way here, Heath Hicks called me. Like, I remember I visited Heath Hicks in Texas a couple of months ago, and the guy he has a deal with a local beer brewery. Like, he's doing this networking event, and he owns the place. He's like co-owner. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, like roofing contractors being influencing, because they're not just moving millions, they're actually making it count.
I think I've been around this going on 11 years now. I think there was a change about 6 years ago, between 5 and 7 years ago. It went from what you were talking about before to these guys making the serious money, and even some of the guys that are mid-money have made a decision that they want to be professionals. And it's the one thing that when I got into this in 2013, 12, was I've always considered roofing the wild, wild west. And I think that dynamic is starting to change by efforts like what you're doing and these other contractors that have been out there and been successful in getting into these investments. My friend up here in Minneapolis I was referring to, he's huge into these investments. If you saw what his net worth was and you compared it, I love saying I'm a roofer to people because they're all like, oh, that's a roof. No, these guys are business owners that are going out and kicking ass and taking names. Doing great.
I love it. And unfortunately, we still have a lot of guys out there who's not there. Like, I follow Patrick Bet-David and his journey, and I remember how he was saying that, back in the day, he was in Las Vegas like every week, nightclubs, party, and then he had to fast from it. He is like, I'm taking a break for like a year or whatever it was, and because he did not want to be known for that. But unfortunately, in the roofing industry, I see a lot of salespeople and business owners who wants to be a ladies' man, who wants to be, nightclub guy, who wants to be Dan Bilzerian style, lifestyle, playboy, and it sucks a lot of cash out of you. And essentially, their business becomes their bank account for their Lambos, they don't pay their bills on time. They are not good leaders or examples to their employees or family or people around them. It's all about their ego. and they're using their businesses as cash cows instead of investment. So I think you have to make a decision as a business owner. Are you going to live a modest life beyond your means, invest your money, or you're going to spend it all? And just like in NBA or boxing or anywhere else, if you don't have financial literacy, you will go bankrupt. Does not matter how big of the operation you have built. How many companies you've seen who've done 100 million a year and they're nowhere to be found today?
Oh, they disappear. They're gone overnight. You've done interviews on some of those companies.
Exactly.
You were sitting there watching them blow up from one office to 8 offices in a matter of 2-3 years. And it's always my biggest, not concern, but as I watch other companies that all of a sudden sprout up out of nowhere and we're 4 years into it and they have 5-6 locations, you're just like, okay, where's the downfall? Where's the fallout coming at?
Why do you think they're falling? Is it personal habits? Is it a market? What are they lacking? Why do they fall?
I have one right now on my radar that I think it goes back to what you initially talked about is the financing. They've openly talked about how they've been financing through a local bank, then all of a sudden the local bank said, I'm not going to finance you anymore. Then it goes to a bigger bank. Well, that's a warning sign that if a financial institution is saying to you, I'm not going to finance you anymore, and you're having to go to a bigger institution, they just have more money to dump in you. Does that make any sense,
Yes,
what I'm saying?
yes.
So there's some right now that I just sit back and I'm watching. I think that's some of it. I think not everybody is supposed to be a business owner.
But
Hard to digest, but
yes.
that is true. And then I think a lot of it goes back to what we started the whole conversation out with is humility, humble beginnings, not losing. When you've lost everything, where you come from in your story, you have a different passion on life than most people have because people in America think they've experienced not having something. Go to a third world country for a week or a visit on a missions trip or something like that, and you experience the real world, your mentality and passion when you're coming back home, number one, when you fly home, you're going to feel guilty of everything you have. Then you're going to spend the next month reevaluating your life and everything you do, and then you're going to apply it into your business. You're going to change your whole business approach. And I think the ones that are successful are those type of people.
I agree with it. One thing I don't understand, maybe you can help me understand it. Because I agree, for anyone, if you don't have good perspective, if you feel like, here's a test for you. If Thanksgiving is not your favorite holiday of the year, this one is for you. Like, travel to poorer country. Like, I went to Honduras, I went to Mexico last year. It was awakening. Like, when you see people without leg playing soccer on the interstate collecting money, you're like, wow. In the United States, they just ask for money. You work for money without a leg. Like, that's perspective. But what I don't understand is this. I get humble beginnings. Most of us, because it's generational thing. 20, 30 years ago, we all were way more poor, like our parents. Like, we want to have a better life for our kids and all of that stuff. But most of us comes from poor. But what I see is, I came from poor family. It's my drive. Like, I'll give you an example. My dad used to work on oil rigs. Unfortunately, back in Russia, he would build bridges in the middle of Siberia, but he would not get paid every week or every month. He would get paid like once in 6 months or once a year. So he would get paid chunk of money for like 20 guys who's under him building that bridge. It will be like 2 million rubles, and he would split it, but we would not have any consistency in our life. So we would have to borrow the money until we get paid. And in Russia, even if you work in a government factory, that was a common thing, because they would not pay workers like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 workers for like 6 months. But people have to keep coming to work, because if you quit, you don't get anything. And people would borrow money before they get paid. So it was very common. So when I started my business, I remember like today. So I worked for American Contractor for 2 years in Atlanta, and I quit. I came home. I told my wife, I will never work for anyone else. And I never did. But all I ever wanted to have consistency. And it's been 9 years of self-employed, 10 years now. I never, ever not paid myself weekly. I always was the same way. Like, I established back in 2010, 2011, I start paying myself weekly. I don't care how much money I have in a bank. When I have a roofing company, we would have 350,000, but weekly paycheck is why I started a business, because I remember my humble beginning. I remember where I'm coming from. I will take bonus on vacation because I don't pay myself. I pay myself minimum wage. I come to my wife and I say, babe, how much we need? $1,000 a week. Boom. And I always pay myself $100 per week. As a matter of fact, myself and all my employees get $100 per week increase when they're ready for it. So let's say you work for me, you can start with the $900, and then 2 months later it's $1,000 a week, and then $1,100, and then $1,200, $1,300, all the way to $2,000 a week. That's how much I pay people. And I start myself. When I start my roofing company, first year I pay myself $1,000 a week, then $1,100, $1,200, then keep making babies. Then at the end it was like $2,500 a week, $2,600 a week, but it was weekly. And I mean, my company grew from 900,000 to 5 million. My paycheck grew, but I always want that safety. Like, I don't want my wife to stress, hey, are we getting paid this week? You know, I don't, as a matter of fact, I pay most of my employees, even in the roofing business. I have 2 guys working for me doing the repairs in Minnesota for 5 years, making salary, $1,250 a week, $1,300 a week. Because I believe that people work better when they don't have to stress about. I remember when I was a siding installer, you know, when you have 3 rainy days that you can't control and you're getting paid for 2 days versus 5 days, I'm like, I don't have money to pay for my apartment. I don't have parents. My wife doesn't work. I don't have a wife back in the day. And it's like, how's it fair to me? I'm a hardworking guy. I'm willing to, I give my all, and I'm not having paycheck because it rained for a couple of days. So I promised myself I'll never do it for my employees. But unfortunately, in the industry, there's so many guys who come from poor background, poor family, you know, poor neighborhoods. They have different, the moment they touch the money, the moment they go on a spending spree, the moment they forget about that. And how come 2 people coming from the same neighborhood, from the same background, have different outcomes? Why someone becomes a saver and someone becomes a spender? Because that's the reality. That's financial literacy. That's why NBA players, 80% of them go out of business, go bankrupt within 5 years. They all make millions, but you know, guys like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, not only they're good at the game, but they're also at business. They're going to become billionaires because they have so many gills. But how many NBA players we have who has nothing?
High percentage of them.
The same with the roofing contractors.
So back to my when I was a framer, one of my biggest problem is I always, when the money, yes, I was very successful at it, but if I had $10,000 in the bank account, in my brain I had $10,000 available to me. And I knew when I left framing and started this business, I needed to change my mindset of how I managed my business. So for our business, what we did is, and you've talked about it, I broke down all of our costs. And we have a separate, for every $10,000 come in, we have a percentage that goes strictly to the side for operations and to do exactly what you're talking about, to pay me and to pay my guys. Our salespeople, and I think in our industry, one of the problems we have on the sales side is everybody's on a commission or a straight commission, and then they get paid when their jobs gets done or whatever. We've switched over where we have a base salary now that's not tied to the commission. It's a base salary with expectations of you're turning in X amount of projects a year, but it solves what you're talking about, because what we were seeing on a straight commission was a lot of guys would start stressing when they hadn't sold a job in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and they're struggling because the market was tight or whatever was going on at that time. Being able to have that income there or that check at the end of every week, number one, made it easier for them, but more importantly, which a lot of people forget about, it isn't the actual employee, it's the spouses at home. It's the children at home.
100%.
And if you can keep those children and the family happy, that individual is going to stay with you and be loyal to you. And that's something we've switched over. But for me personally, I agree 100% in what you're saying, that paying myself, and it's been incremental as we've grown our business to where we're able to compensate ourselves every week. There's a check that comes, which I never as I was doing it when I was framing, my mentality was what you were talking about. I was that guy that was in the same neighborhood doing it polar opposite of what I do today.
Love it. Let's switch topic to completely different direction. I want to dive into something that you started early on. Many contractors did it later. Let's talk about drones, drone technology. I want to hear, because you have very unique, amazing story. I'm hyped about it because you started drones when they were too new to even be drones in the roofing industry. And today, all the big players have them, insurance companies using them, Eagle View. Like, we have more drone technology company-based companies, entering market every single month almost. We have a new player coming. You're building something. Let's talk about drones.
So our company in 2017 is when you could get your license, commercially fly. So actually what I was doing is I was on LinkedIn, just trying back then. I was on a LinkedIn page in December, January, and the former insurance commissioner in the state of Iowa made a posting on drone inspections. And his comment was, in 5 years, physical evaluations are going to be gone, and this is new technology. And it just struck a chord with me. And I was like, okay, I'm in this industry, and you're telling me that all this is going to change to this. And I didn't think 5 years, but in my head, I was like, okay, I got to start researching it. And by April of 2017, I had found a drone manufacturer out of California, Menlo, California, that had their own drone and their own software that would identify hail damage or any type of damage on the roof. It had AI that could identify the components on the roof, and it had wireframe technology. There was a problem. It was $40,000 a year for one drone. And at the time, I was probably doing $2.5 million in business. And I thought, what the heck? I convinced them to do the 4 payments every quarter. I had to make a payment on 40. So it was $10,000 every quarter. So I jumped into it because
you get one drone for $40,000 and
lease for 1 year.
1 year.
1 year. And I got
So
unlimited reports.
what did you get? So you got a drone, you got a technology. What else did you get?
I got the ability to fly it and have a gimmick so I could get the people next door to think that I got something cooler than the other guy in town. And that's what I ran with. And
did it work?
It did. I actually I got a couple claims in my first. So by July, I was flying this drone. I had flown it probably 2 weeks, and there was one that was a real complicated roof. It was a 10-12, 12-12 pitch, 3-story walkout backside, State Farm claim. I went out, I literally did a physical evaluation, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to fly this drone and see how it works. So I flew it. I had my report. I had our picture reporting, and then we had the Xactimate estimate sitting there, and State Farm came out, and the adjuster was a CAD adjuster out of Texas, and he came out. I showed him everything, and he goes, looks like there's damage on this thing. Let's get up and find out. So we climbed up on it. He came back down. He took my report, my estimate. He approved it. It was like a $30,000 job. Was excited about where it was going. Fast forward, so that was great, but then fast forward about 10 days later, 2 weeks later, I thought I'd never see that adjuster again, and I get a phone call on my private phone. I don't know how he got my number, but the guy calls me and says, "Hey Chandler, I'm that adjuster that met you, a couple weeks ago out there in Johnston, and I got this guy out here that he has some properties that he'd like to have some evaluations. I told him about your drone. He'd love to talk to you." He is still the largest apartment complex owner in the city of Des Moines.
Wow.
Almost 8,500 squares total. I went out, evaluated 70 of his properties, flew the drone on it. His contractor of 25 years told him that he didn't have any damage, that it wouldn't be able to get approved through insurance. State Farm came out with 5 different adjusters, and after we got on the 5th roof, all the damages that I had identified with the drone and marked, and I had them all sitting in the back of my truck in boxes. The adjuster came down, looked at them, and said, "Everything here is matching everything you're showing me. You just saved us days of work. We're going to approve this whole property with all the roofs and all the gutters."
How much was that job?
$5 million claim when it was all said and done.
Paid for that drone.
But it instantly went from a gimmick. Because after I talked to that property owner, they all want to do cost analysis of their properties. They want to know what's going on. Well, if you look at that on a a homeowners association, or you look at apartment complex or hotel or commercial properties, that's a big deal. But in my mind, because I like to think a little smaller, what about the homeowner?
Why do you like to think smaller?
Because there's money in it.
Riches and niches.
Yeah, but so we've taken that same concept and we've narrowed it all the way down to every homeowner. So in the Des Moines market, we've done over 10,000 of these evaluations. So what we've done is we've gone out, we've evaluated the property, whether it has damage or it doesn't have damage. So if you remember the story in the beginning, I would do 10 evaluations. Well, what my concern was is out of 10 evaluations, we find 5 to 6 of them have some kind of damage on it or maintenance or repair that needs to be done, of which maybe 3 or 4 will file a claim. You'll get 3 approved and we'll get the 3 jobs. Make sense? My concern as a contractor, if I'm looking forward thinking down the road, what about the 6 or 7 that we didn't do business with that aren't going to have any work done? A typical contractor walks away from those 6 or 7. But what I have is I have the data on those 6 or 7. And I let those homeowners know, hey, if something happens again, I'll come back and help you out. Call me. If another storm happens a year later, guess what I have? Documentation of a full evaluation and a drone evaluation, all sitting there readily available. We had a storm that happened back here in August of this year, and in the swath that went through, we had done over 800 of these evaluations. My team didn't have to go door knock. We simply picked the phone up and made phone calls.
Where do you think insurance industry is going with the drones? Do you think they're gonna all adopt? Do you see that in a couple of years, or how many years, make a prediction that we will absolutely eliminate physical inspection like that person on LinkedIn did?
No.
Why is it possible? So he was wrong?
Was he wrong? No, but he was wrong. So yes and no. Partially wrong, because I personally believe, and I'm deep into drones. I understand it. I understand what AI does today. I don't believe AI is as accurate as it needs to be. It is a tool that can be used to convince a homeowner to do an evaluation. It is not a tool that can be used for the insurance company to approve a claim. Because the insurance company, no matter what, they're the ones paying you. All right, so Dmitry, you want to pay to get a roof put on. You're the insurance company. I'm a homeowner. All right, and I'm going to send you drone data. No one's physically been on that roof and looked at it, and you're going to end up paying $20,000 based off of pictures and no one physically looking at it. Will you do that? It'd be a hard time.
It'll be hard.
It would be hard for you to fit. Now, granted, the insurance company doesn't want to send out adjusters as much as they used to. So that's where I believe.
Because liability.
Because the liability involved. So I believe there's going to be a fine line between it. I believe the contractors or individuals that can take technology, just like you have a hammer on your tool belt, and pull that drone out when you need it and the technology and how it's there, and you can complement what you're currently doing. So for us, we do a physical evaluation, then we fly the drone over the top of it. And it works great.
But the thing about it is, if you think about restoration industry, not retail, when you have, like, I'm in Minnesota, we have storms, hailstorms, that undisputable, and they cost $100 to $200 billion worth of damage. Do you really need physical inspection for that, or you can automate? So think about this. You have a swath. You have neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood, right? So when you see those pictures, like high resolution, like Densmark, right? I'm not talking about something that how many kids we have. Like you see how many kids. You see the size. Do we need it? Probably not. In that scenario,
correct.
Can you replace it?
That's where he's at. So that's where I would agree with him, because we, like the storm that came through for us in August, that hail was, we call it Texas hail, but it was good hail. And you flew the drone over the top of it.
Call it Minnesota hail.
Minnesota hail. It was very obvious that was damage, 100% damage. And yes, we had some of those that we did, and they were approved. The insurance companies didn't send adjusters out on. But again, I think it goes back to, for us to deny that insurance companies don't know the contractors that are actually doing the work, because they do know who we are. They keep track of that information. The contractors that use technology and do evaluations the right way, and they send that information in, this is my belief, they're more than likely going to have that approved. As to if they've had a contractor that they've constantly had issues with them, fighting them on things, they're going to end up sending somebody out for a physical evaluation. Agree? Disagree?
I agree. But I also would say this, that roofers in our audience, probably majority of our audience, are on a skeptic side. So that we're all skeptics, right? Here's what fascinates me, and here's my prediction for this industry. Look at Amazon warehouse. Have you seen the footage of like robots like lifting up, getting and going like playing? It's like a chess game. Like you have like 28. Like it's insane. When you look at the modern warehouses, your mind just like pops up. Like what is happening? Like who is doing this? Is it aliens or humans build it? Right. That's the power of AI. Then add to this face recognition technology, right? So if there's enough money in it, there's enough money in warehousing, shipment, Amazon, so they develop it. There is face recognition. Look at China today. Like, they can track a person, they can track, anything from Tesla to cars. Like, if there is money behind it, and a roofing industry has money. Insurance companies are biggest buyers of money. So my prediction, with the next 10 years, we're going to have AI technology. When they drone flies, just like a face technology, it will identify the gutter size, the downspout size, the materials, the texture, because it's not that hard with the money behind the research. So by the end of that inspection, it will not be any worse than human, probably better. Because what we're lacking is, right now, what we're doing. So we have images, but we need a human who will write down material list, vents, and stuff like that. You think freaking AI cannot do that?
No, it's going to.
It's going to, right?
We already, in just the technology that we have, we're already able to tell you what the length of the gutter. You are exactly right with what you're saying.
But now you have pipelines, like pipes, accessories. You have all the forces. I think in 10 years, it'll be all AI. Pretty much what materials there, what accessories there. How much does it cost? Where to buy it? Who can do it? It'll be all automated.
You're watching everything come together right now.
Yes.
All the APIs, you're watching everything slowly go like this where it's coming together. And I do agree. The AI is going to come. And in extreme cases, you are going to need a physical. But outside of that, the majority of stuff, especially when insurance companies go to using the technology in the underwriting side. Because now what that insurance company has is they have a before, and now they have a physical after. And they can take the AI and they can tell the difference of what this property looked like here and what it looks like now. Doing the exact same, makes sense? Doing the exact same flight. And that's where and then what's going to happen as well, because we're already working on that, is having you go and you fly your drone, and as soon as you're done, you have your estimate setting there with whatever product you have. I mean, look at the different platforms you have out there today that you can go and get a good, better, best. And it has a different type of products that's all there. You simply press the button, that drone lands, and you're going to have a complete estimate over here of your product specific to you and what you're selling.
What's scary to me is we're taking away the human element of it, and we're adding certain algorithms. And if you think, I don't know if you played or went down the rabbit hole of Chat GPT yet. I have, and
yeah, it's amazing.
I will never be the same. I mean, think about it. Like,
it's amazing.
If you're a adjuster, you can literally go in and say, write denial letter from State Farm to this country. It'll write it for you. Here's an example for you that I want to share. So recently, one of my guys sent me, said, Dmitry, I need an article for roofconference.com. So we have conference, by the way, everybody's invited, Orlando, beautiful time, 15, 16 of February. So we need the article, why would anybody attend it? And it happened to me that email came like 9 p.m. and I'm showing to my wife ChatGPT, and she's like, she can't believe it. It's like, say what? Like, no, isn't like, yeah, baby, here's the one. So email comes in, and I was like, I'll show you. And I put in the search, like, write a blog on why would anyone wants to attend a roofing process conference. It spits out. If you go to roofconference.com, I confess to my guy who wrote me email today that was Chad. He could not believe. Like, you tricked me. 3 seconds later, 7 reasons to attend a roofing process conference. Number 1, network, meet other like-minded contractors. Number 2, learn from best speakers in the industry. Like, all together, I mean, some of them can't, right? And I'm like, good enough for me? Copy, paste, send email. This is what's freaking gonna happen. I mean, think about if ChatGPT can create exactimate estimate for State Farm. So you give them a data from the drone, from the AI, and it's like, I need exactimate estimate for this, or denial letter, or approval letter, or wherever.
It's generated.
It generated 3 seconds.
It's amazing. My marketing guy brought it up to me about a week and a half, 10 days ago. And I have a daughter that's a senior. She's in high school, and she just had to do a report, and she's in just on a little internship with us with it. And I go, tell him what you had to do the report on. And she said it, and in 10 seconds, it was 500 words already written, and she was just dumbfounded.
I mean, it's sense. You can say, like, hey, write a recruiting ad for my company. It will do it for you. Like, write Facebook ad for our company. Like, whatever you want. But would you say that's the future? Like,
technology, the technology with the drone technology and where it's going, and it's going to extend past the drone technology in that as you do a physical evaluation, and if you document it the right way and the right platform that documents it, those same photos can have AI applied to it for your siding, your gutters, your elevations are going around the property, and it's just a matter of time. You say 10 years, I'm going to tell you it might be sooner than what you think.
It's conservative, and you're right. I think you're right because I still cannot comprehend how fast it's changing. I think this year, 2023, will change a lot of things. I would like to hear from you your perspective on the insurance industry and the roofing industry combined, because you are from a very unique place. You're from Iowa. You were telling me earlier how many insurance companies are there, and I want to hear from you your prediction where we're going, because we have so much capital coming in. Are we going to have major corporations dominating the market, or we're going to have another collapse like in the farming industry? Like in the farming industry, if you look like who raised our chicken, there's like 4 players. There's 3 or 4 farmers, and they all come from Brazil. Some of it comes from the United States. But there's very few players. Do you see roofing industry getting there?
I believe the roofing industry is going to come down to certain players. I don't know the number. 10 players, 5 players are going to be major players that are going to be national. You're already seeing these companies that are, you've mentioned them, that are
power home remodeling,
that are coming together. I believe that's going to happen. On the insurance side, I personally feel that either there's going to be teaming up with those companies to help them out. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I do believe with what's happening with the deductibles and the size of those deductibles, that the insurance side of it's just going to be simply a check being cut to the homeowner, and then it's going to be a complete retail market. I think that's going to happen. Is there going to be a relationship? This is the question I have. Is there going to be a relationship between certain contracting groups or contractors and insurance companies to help them in their underwriting process, to help do a pre-evaluation? And I spoke with you earlier about if you go and you have a life insurance policy taken out on you for $1 million or more, what do they got to do to you? They got to draw your blood.
That will.
Yeah, and they pay somebody to come draw your blood, right?
Yeah.
So what about these homes that they want insurance on their home? Why wouldn't the insurance company? They're already doing it for blood and a life insurance policy. Why wouldn't they do it on a house? Wouldn't that protect their investment a little bit? So now, a homeowner, I decide to insure my house. The insurance company teams up with a contractor or one of these large companies, and they decide, you know what, for $150, $200, I'm going to send a contractor out there to do an evaluation, look at the roof, fly this drone, this technology, send it in for underwriting, and now the house is either full replacement, ACV, or they're going to say, hey, we're not going to insure the roof because it's too bad. those are things I see that I think is going to happen. But I think the true insurance game that we saw 10 years ago that's now dwindled to what it is today with these higher deductibles is going to be by the wayside. The one variable I've never heard anybody really talk about is just like with auto insurance, at least in Iowa, you're required to have a full replacement, right, for your car, whatever it's called. What about who really owns your house?
Bank.
Okay, so what happened in 2008? The crisis, right? Homeowners didn't pay their home and they had just left their houses. So is the mortgage companies going to decide now, because deductibles are going to get so high that people aren't going to do the work on their house? They're going to pocket that insurance claim and then they're going to bail. So is there going to be in my head, and I don't know this answer, I just throw it out there. Is the mortgage company going to require deductible insurance to cover the deductible? Well, then the industry is going to stay afloat. But I would think that a mortgage company wants to protect the interest of their home. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
my follow-up question on it is, there's so many. There is an army of truck and the trucks out there who contributes to the problem, because there's so many guys who waive the deductible, who bids low, who doesn't adopt the technology, who doesn't understand their numbers, their overhead, who willing to live paycheck to paycheck. How do they affect the industry, and do you see them going away anytime soon, or maybe working for bigger companies? What will happen to little guys when bigger guys will raise to $100 to $300 million giants?
I think the little guy's always going to be there. I agree with you. I don't believe in the way they do their business. They don't. Number one, they don't carry the right insurance. They're low. Where the problem comes for a lot of contractors, I think, is the adjusters quote those well, I got this guy that'll do it for $380 a square. You know what I'm saying? And we all know that I can't touch that thing unless you're over 4. You know what I'm saying? They're 20% lower than what a legitimate contractor that's doing it the right way is for.
How do you fix that? Because in the retail world, like when Walmart opens a store, there's like 25 stores go out of business in the neighborhood and the zip code, right? When IKEA comes to town, cabinet shops and stuff, they all go out of business because, like I'll give you an example. I bought a sauna from Costco. Beautiful sauna, 6-seater, motor, not motor, heater and everything, like $5,000 maybe, like 4,300 3 years ago. There's a local shop here who builds custom saunas, and I bought a trailer sauna from them. The guy gave me a price $15,000. He cannot compete with Costco. So Costco, IKEA, all of the Walmart, they put out of business all the small guys. Is it a regulation? Is it a price point? Do bigger companies need to go cheaper to drive out the guys, or do we need more regulation to drive out? Because those little guys cause the most trouble. It's 80% of your complaints. It's all the fraud. Fraud happens on all levels, but there's so much fraud because, not only fraud, but warranty issues. Not returning phone calls, hiring someone back in the day at Craigslist, and today it could be from anywhere. And now you have a leaky roof, and what do you do? The problem is real.
I think it's regulation.
And
in your example, that guy's getting paid more money. In this example, he's low. And just like you said, and I apologize to the Chuck and the trucks out there, but some of these guys are just looking at the beer money for the weekend or whatever that is. And that's what
exactly
we're really talking about. We're talking about that there. And I don't, not every market, I believe here in Minneapolis, don't you guys have to have, you have permits, you have, in some cities, you have to have somebody employed from that city that's in that regulation.
We have Minnesota statute that says you cannot waive deductible and helps contractors. When I come to you and pitch you the roof, like, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, do you see this Minnesota statute? You cannot legally waive deductible. I'm going to get in trouble. You're going to get in trouble. If that's what you want, I'll just have to send this to your insurance company. That's what you're doing. Sorry, but not sorry. You can't do that.
Enforcement of that, I think, is where it comes. Maybe it's not more regulation, but maybe it's more enforcement. In Iowa, they have it's 103A.71. It's a form you're supposed to fill out in Iowa, and 99.9% of contractors don't ever fill that out when they're doing an insurance claim, and it's required by law to have figured out. It's signed. And the only way is if a homeowner was to file a complaint on it. But enforcement of current laws, I think, is going to help some of it. I don't think you're going to completely get away from all of it, but it's going to eliminate some. I know in this storm that came through in August in our market, what was exciting to me about that storm was how the community came together to thwart out of town, and chucking the trucks. And it was resonated across the community. People were talking about it openly. It was on the news. And I think it's stuff like that that's going to help get those type of contractors not to be able to get business.
I agree with you, but I want to push back a little bit. Everything you have described did take place in Florida. So if you look at the Florida, they went after them. They literally last year in 2022 put contractors in jail.
Yeah, I saw articles on that.
Yeah, who waived the deductible. They make case out of them. So when we go after the contractor, I think the danger of it is, number one, you damage the image of the contractor.
I would agree. Of even me, even myself, or contractors like us.
We all look bad. And number two, contractors are the one who's pushing back. Like if you go to Texas and tell them you need more regulation, like, no, we want to be free. So
you have to understand, I'm talking from my market that we're in. The regulation isn't like in these other markets.
And I love it. I love regulation because regulation makes you stronger, makes it tougher to compete, just like a school. You know, when I went to university, to get government, fund or grant, you have to be the best of the best. And, if you want stipendia, if you want government to pay for your education, like get a little cash money, you have to have A grades. Like I was the guy, we have like 35 guys, and I was the only one who was not paying for education and getting government money. It was 7 girls and me out of 65 people. And I'm proud of it because when I know the rule and what I have to do, it's race to the top. Now it's truly best of the best. To get a license in Florida, you have to pass, I think I passed like 4.5 hour roofing test, 3.5 hour business test. It's a tough license to pass.
Yeah, I agree.
But look at the situation there. There's not a lot of chucking the trucks. I mean, they're still there. I agree. They're always going to be there, but disproportionate to the amount of good contractors, bigger guys who's killing it, who understand the business, because when you have to sit through the test and answer the question how your truck depreciates, that makes you a better contractor. And it filters all the guys who are not willing to do the bare minimum. I mean, I think regulation is the answer, but I also see that unfortunately, we are against bigger forces. Insurance companies are billion-dollar corporations.
Agree.
And they are against us. They are the enemy. So when they pass regulation, they're not making it for us to race to the top. They make it so they have leverage over us. And we have more regulation that's coming from insurance companies than coming from the contractors. Contractors need to regulate us. We need to come up with a standard. What's important for us, not for insurance companies or...
We need to regulate I don't know how you regulate ourselves.
Yes.
But it's unfortunate because you always hear the insurance companies are out against the contractor. I don't think they're out against the everyday Joe contractor. It's the ones that are doing, and we brought up a word earlier, and it was greed. And I think it's those that go to that extreme, and they're using that greed side of things that are causing a lot of the stuff that the insurance companies are putting into place, and which has caused these laws or whatever that we're seeing out there. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And if we could clean up, you're talking about chucking the truck, if we can clean up what's going on over here a little bit and get these guys that are in the middle that are really making money in a business, there's your margins. And if you're making the right margins, you're doing business well. If that makes, I'm confusing myself, but you know what I'm saying.
I follow you. I think what's really happening is insurance companies, they become politicians. They become very political.
Yeah,
And on the highest level, what's happening is, what are you doing in politics? Like what's happening right now, Russia and Ukraine, like, right? So there's agenda between two parties, two candidates. So think about insurance industry and roofing industry as two candidates running for something. And you can make a case against any weakness on the other side.
Agree.
They're really good at us, and we're pretty good at them, but they're united, we're not united, and they're playing this political game really well. They can point a finger, say, hey, look at that guy waiving deductible, still in the money, boom.
Right.
And we suck at pointing back at them and making a case of their weakness. We all know what they're doing, all the propaganda on TV and stuff like that, but, they will pay way more fines and their tickets way bigger, but we just cannot, here's how bad we are. I did one of the best pieces of content I created in 2022 was debate between Chad Wilson and Steve Badger, right? So it was beautiful debate, so many contractors spread the word, because I guarantee you those kind of videos, everybody's watching on the highest level.
And it's good.
It is good.
Extremely good.
So insurance companies are watching it. I told you earlier, what I love about light is when you turn off on that switch, dark disappears. The moment you shed the light on a problem, it disappears. You cannot keep doing what you're doing if everybody's looking at you. Before that, we did not talk about it. We didn't have a media company. We didn't expose the truth. Yeah. So now, for example, this debate, we filmed the debate. Now it's on YouTube. Now it's for people to share. It makes common sense, and they're listening because they are not only investing in propaganda, they're also doing damage control when they're getting exposed, right? So they're, okay, we exposed there, let's not do it again. Like, for example, on our channel, we have video that got hundreds of thousands of views last year. It was a State Farm lawyer, 33 carpenter case in
Davenport.
Yeah.
Davenport.
So, and State Farm lawyer was making fool of herself, and that video got so many comments. I mean, like people, homeowners watching, right? So State Farm has to do damage control, but I have a contractors commenting on the debates, like, what do you think you're doing? What do you think like? This is waste of money. This is waste of time. What does it prove? How is it going to help us? Well, if this is not going to help us, if this is the only thing I know that works. Media is so powerful. That's why every politician knows it. Every contractor should know it. Like, we are media companies. They're a media company. We're a media company. But we also need to start playing politician game. They're playing it with us. They're pointing in our weaknesses, making us look very bad. And we are not investing in that media content to expose them. What are we doing? Oh, here's Owens Corning representative going to show us how great OC duration is. Boring. Nobody cares. This is not the content we should be creating.
It's not winning the war in the industry we're in.
I agree. So if you're the contractor watching this, if you're an here's a few ideas to any contractor out there. You want to start a podcast, you want to start a YouTube show. Here's one idea. Denied claims. Make a video about every denied claim that turned into the job later. I'll watch it. I'll watch every episode. Here's the claim, got denied by Allstate 2 weeks ago. Here's the approval for $30,000. We didn't give up, boom. Every denied claim should be a YouTube video if you actually got it bought. That's just one idea. Or start filming them. I don't care. Do something. Document your journey. Show us or how to start the claim, how to get claim approved. Document what you're doing. That's powerful.
Oh, it's huge. I think it goes back to that technology side where you're collecting the data. Collect the information while you're going through and you're doing the claim, while if you have the documentation right and you're able to show that you have the for us, we have 88% approval on our claims we file.
Wow.
And when you have there's certain insurance companies that you're under 20% approval, I'm not doing anything different. Our process that we do is the same every time.
Who has that 20%?
I can't say it.
Yes, you can.
I'll let you guess.
Is
them.
it State Farm?
There's companies. We've talked about one of them in our meeting earlier, but yeah, no, they have it. But again, like what you're saying, on the back side, when you decide to put a little backbone against it, and then you pull your documentation out that you had from before and you show it to them, conveniently they approve it. So I'd have to agree with you what you're saying. Why can't you show that? It was denied here. Here's all of our documentation in a professional manner presented, and this is what you get the result over here. No big fight, just a simple here, and boom, it's approved.
Love it.
But you're gonna make them actually start approving in the beginning.
If you would start brand new in a brand new market today, would you start a retail-based company or insurance restoration company?
Ooh, wow. Depends on the market, I think.
Dallas, Texas.
Well, I would retail.
Retail.
I'd start retail.
And it comes from storm restoration contractor. Wow. Why?
It would end up being, if I start retail, it can still end up being insurance.
100%.
100%.
It's a bonus.
It's a bonus. It'll always. I mean, I go out and I do retail, and I see there's the damage on it. You can go the insurance route, but I would go retail.
What would be your business model?
Same I have right now.
How would you enter? Like, what do you do? Like, give me right now. You're gonna look. Here's what I love about you, and here's what I tell everyone: you cannot take from us what's between our ears. When you know something, I mean, you can come get my health. You can steal my cars. You can take my house. You can burn this building. I'm gonna go tomorrow and rebuild. It's from ground up because I know how to. Because I learned something. If you are stripped from everything you have today and you have to start over in different state, I don't know, nuclear bomb drops on Iowa and you have to move to Dallas, Texas, what would you do?
Our same process. Teach and educate homeowners about the condition of their property. Because the fact of the matter is they need me, whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, next year, 5 years from now. The average homeowner moves every 9 years. So sometime in the next 9 years.
Is it 9 years?
I thought it was
5 or 7.
Maybe it's 5 or 7. But let's say the interest rates go up, will be 9 to 10. But sometime you're going to need my services. So if I take that approach out front, I can do the retail side of things. At the same time, I'm actually collecting all that data I told you about, and I'm collecting a ton of data.
With the drones.
With the drones and the way we do our process, I'm collecting that data. So I'm looking at long-term game. I'm not looking at the one and done. I'm looking at a long-term picture is what I'm looking at. So and I truly, just sheer numbers, by doing that volume. Also, if you're looking at the insurance side, you focus on neighborhoods where there's been some type of damage that's happened in the last couple of years, and you document it.
Give advice to nice guys in the roofing industry who just getting started. Like nice guys, they want to give the best price. They don't want to offend anyone. They want to make sure they're not the lowest bidder, but it's fair. Like those guys who are just trying to please everyone, don't know the sales game, maybe, you know the type.
I was the nice guy when I came out of framing to this. 40% of the people you're not going to do business with no matter what. You don't want them as your customer. And the sooner you as a nice guy can realize that, the better you're going to be.
Wow.
That's my opinion. They're going to weed themselves out from you, and you need to weed yourselves out from them, because I believe everybody knows sometime in the process of you closing a deal, you know whether that customer is the right customer for you, and you need to walk from it because it's going to cost you 2 jobs to do that one. The headache on the backside's a nightmare. Could be a nightmare to you.
You filter them. It's hard to walk away from the job when you're I see guys making this mistake all the time, man. I cannot tell you how many times someone came to me and the problem in their business is because they took the job because they were desperate for cash that week, and they took the deal hoping they're going to make money despite the fact that all the numbers were saying opposite. You know, if you cannot make money, and I'm talking about real profit money. If you know who is the worst? It's people who flip homes. It's people who have 15 properties, like telling you how big of the shot they are and 5 reasons why you should take that job and give them a good deal because they're going to give you more jobs. Those are the ones, would you agree, that like to walk away from?
Walk as quick as you can. You run.
Because you're going to give them a best deal. And to be honest with you, my worst customers are people who paid me the least. My best customers, somehow, I don't know how it works, who paid me the most. People who paid me the most, they respected me the most. And usually we become like best friends. And people who I went above and beyond to please and give them a best deal, they are never to be satisfied.
The ones that you give them something, and I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's, I'll give you that 4-foot extension for a downspout. The ones that ask you to give them something, a lot of times can be trouble. They can cause you some headaches. The ones you give into, but I have to agree with you. The ones that are willing to pay, they're going to pay you and they're going to respect what you do, and they're going to treat you right as a contractor. And they're great customers. And there's a lot of them out there. I think sometimes we get in there as a contractor and we're so focused on, I need this job. The other thing I would say is that don't be desperate and don't ever get yourself into the financial. When my first 4 years, it was job by job and I paid every week. Don't ever get yourself behind in the beginning because you never know when that next job's coming. Pay it. Make sure the job's paid for.
Love it. Man, that was awesome episode, guys. Comment below if you have any questions for me and Chandler. And man, thank you so much. I'm pretty sure you're going to be back at the podcast in the near future. We'll do more stuff with you. Guys, if you like this episode, make sure you like it, subscribe. It truly helps our channel. I'll see you guys in the next episode.